Hey everyone, welcome to the Steel City Grid. My name is Dan,
And I'm London.
and this is Game 4 of the 2025 Pittsburgh District Championship. On the left, we have Pittsburgh's own Wikignometry playing Sportsmetal, and on our right, we have SebastianK once again defending his top spot with a reg criminal Zahya.
I was really excited to see this matchup because I was surprised to see Sports show up at all, and it looks like it's a pretty cool deck. So I'm excited to see the game we have going on here.
Definitely. I think the reg sports lists that had been popular in the last meta haven't seen that much success. All the usual tools that you have for fast advance are still good, and not many runners are bringing Clot to stop that fast advance game plan. But I think there's just so much disruption on the runner side and a lot of central's aggression that sports can sometimes really struggle into, um, even if you are getting points or card draw from agenda steals.
Yeah, I guess Sports is maybe less susceptible to ice destruction that's going around because to some extent you don't really care where the runner's going as long as you can get your agendas. But maybe if they're imping stuff, then you get concerned. But I think you're right. The absence of clot is pretty helpful.
Certainly. So we see Wiki ice both centrals and install a face down card. Now, since this is sports, it can be a lot of different options. This could be a spin doctor, but it could also be one of those one-point agendas that Wiki is hoping you'll steal, whether it's a hyperloop to gain some extra credits, or even a mega pre-qualifier, which is a 3-1 for you, but once one of them is scored or stolen, it becomes a 3-2 for the corp. I think for a lot of runners, you feel pretty torn about checking the board. Oh, and we see an inside job from SebK after installing a Dawkins Pass. This could hit a lot of key cards.
Okay, so that's interesting. It's basically an inside job for zero because you get two accesses with Zahya, and with all this ice, you probably weren't going to get those otherwise.
We see a Giordano Memorial, as well as an RLC come down, or it's not come down yet, but I think those are frustrating hits. It does give a bit of uh, strategy and game plan away to SebK, but they weren't like the critical agenda steals that you maybe were hoping for.
Yeah, I think Giordano kind of suggests a kind of sports with negative pointers. So at least you get that useful information, I feel.
Definitely, and it's a bit of a scary card, especially since SebK couldn't trash it. We see an install into Tranquility Grid on the sports side, along with icing that up, while Seb is installing Class Act and drawing up here.
I would,
Giordano, go ahead.
I would perpetually be frustrated by Tranquility's 4 trash cost. Powerful.
Extremely. And I love the new alt art for it. Oh, and there it is. Advanced score of Vitruvius. We're waiting for the sports metal trigger, and Wiki doesn't go for an additional advancement for a counter. I think instead prioritizing. Um, oh, all right. Just getting points on the board.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Just go fast, get up to 4 so, and then they can't stop you from fast advancing.
We've got Boomerang onto HQ, res the Gatekeeper. Sadly, Boomerang eats right through it, but probably smart to force the res to get access to an HQ again.
Seb needs a 4-sided die.
And here we see some interesting includes with Moonpool. That's a fascinating fast advance option, not usually included in some of the regular lists. Instead, we've seen it in, I think most recently, Pailu's core sports list. And this allows you to ditch some cards into HQ, use them to place advancements on installed cards, and then shuffle them back into R&D. And when sports are putting a lot of assets on the board, or assets and agendas, it could be a nice way to sneak out a lot of points.
I actually talked to Wiki after the tournament, and she explained something that I wasn't thinking about. That with sports, you can just draw like 6 cards in a turn, and that makes it really easy to do multiple stuff because you probably drew into 2 or 3 1-pointers. So it's even better than I initially thought. It's a really solid card for fast advancer.
We see on the runner side SebK installing a daily cast, and then career faring down another class act. just going for the burst draw. I think trying to keep up with the speed of sports. He's been low on economy, and so hopefully that those cards will kind of keep him back in the game as when he goes to install on the train grid and take the credits for it.
Yeah, I think with Gatekeeper Res, Criminal kind of needs a little setup time before they're ready to get back in. Maybe we'll see pressure on the remote, or maybe the threat of Jagger Undy will scare you off.
Criminal often feels like it's the best predator into, well, I don't know about best, but criminal often feels like it's favored into these like extremely fast HB decks because a single piece of ice doesn't often keep them out. Any boomerangs and inside job will just let you get right in there without any defensive upgrades. We don't know if that's an agenda in the remote, if it's a Managarm, Nightmare Archives, but looks like we're going to find out with the boomerang coming down.
Yeah, and I
Oh,
think
and a
you're right.
Pride, yeah.
Criminal's pretty good at getting into one ice remotes. The issue is with sports, compared to something like PD, where PD really needs to score that agenda. Sports maybe doesn't even care if it's Hyperloop. But we'll see. Maybe it's another Vitruvius, and that's a pretty good steal.
Five-band draw with Class Act, installing a Shibboleth for free, and putting 4 credits for trashing. And that'll help take down the shrink really good as a Mega Pre, the first Mega Pre is stolen.
So I think this is a pretty good run for the runner. Getting the Blade Res is going to be pretty useful later. Clearing that Trank grid for free, amazing. And I mean, points is points, even if it's not Vitruvius.
Exactly. I missed if Wiki took cards or credits. I'm assuming that she took credits just to bounce back from the Ice Res.
I also didn't see.
All right, and it looks like in hand she has an Elevagar, a Moonpool. We saw the Giordano and the RLC. A lot of interesting tools. Giordano isn't scary yet. It requires 2 credits for every agenda or other card in the runner's score area. But there's just a quick install advance, gain the 2 credits back from sports. Keep the points flowing.
And using the D-Res. D-Res and Gatekeeper is interesting. I might have been tempted to D-Res Ablative, but I guess it depends on your hand, and you're assuming that Gatekeeper will fire or tax a ton later, so it'll still be a good res.
It'll at least require something like a boomerang or an inside job to get back in there. And for now, Ablative, at least the runner's not showing any options to get back in. And I think if you're going to... Oh, true.
But 6 credits, so...
That's a little brutal. And I think Wiki's going to keep installing the remote server just to force the runner to have answers, which I think is not a bad sports game plan, especially once you start throwing in more defensive upgrades.
Yeah, the trick with Giordano is you're kind of happy when it's not good yet, because it means the runner doesn't have any points. So it's kind of a win-win. Either you're ahead or Giordano is super taxing.
I feel like once the runner has to pay like 6 credits, 8 credits, 10 credits to get past the Giordano, it's not feasible at all, and you were just digging for a pinhole, which I think we know at least 1, probably 2 are in Subcase deck.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's all at 6. It's already a better Managarm, and we already know Managarm's good. So once you get to 8, it just becomes ridiculous.
Now, while the players are thinking about these turns, I want to give a shout out for Wikignometry, member of the testing team, The Future Perfect, and has had some really serious wins. She's a strong competitor, both in the Pittsburgh meta, but also traveling to other events. And I think her best win to date was first place at East Coast National Championships, I think about 2 years ago, 2023, when she was still very new to the game. I don't know if Wiki had even been playing for like more than a year.
She joined at basically the same time I did, which is we moved to standard as soon as the boat was banned.
The perfect time to jump in.
Yeah.
Okay, we have run on R&D, no res. I can't quite see the ice. My mind wants to say it's the Managarm, but I'm not sure. Either way, no trash
Yeah, maybe the Managarm alt art.
from the illustrious Cat Shen.
Fast break. We'll see if that comes up later.
Oh, I hope it does. That is such a fun card. I used to play it a lot in some of the R plus, like the Rella Sand decks. It just feels so fun to dig through your deck, install a ton of cards, and try and windmill out as fast as you can. But it's probably more consistent in Sportsmetal.
Yep. Fewer upgrades, but more capacity to just draw up like 4 or 5 cards and not even pay credits for it.
And if there aren't going to be any serious like install combos with the fast break, I guess it exists in the deck, like you said, mostly to break lock, draw a lot of cards, and feed the moon pool.
Yes, I think that's right.
Okay, install in the remote. Discarding a card. I think Nightmare Archives is still in hand, so we'll see if the runner ever accesses that surprise.
I think there might be still 2 fast breaks in hand, which is interesting because I feel like me from a distance would feel like you'd only ever get one off, but maybe Wiki knowing the deck better feels like you can get 2 fast breaks off, which that would be exciting.
It would be very exciting. We have Waken Plant run on HQ, or not run on HQ yet, but I think it's coming. I think this multi-access is really crucial into sports because if you have to win on single accesses, trying to dig past those one-point agendas that just push the core forward can be really difficult. And here, with the Awaken Plant, you can do pressure on HQ to try and keep power cards out of the hand, and then build up for that final run in R&D.
Yeah, the runner has Dockland, Wade, Shibboleth, and with Zahya, that means that running HQ once a turn seems pretty profitable.
Here comes the Bravado HQ.
Speaking of profit,
Fast break number 1. Nightmare Archives.
you were right.
All right, so here's the age-old question that we've been asking ourselves all tournament. What do you want to do with the first Nightmare Archives? Do you take the core, or do you add it to the score?
Yeah, now that you mention it, I don't think anyone was expecting this to be a core damage tournament, but it's really showed up over a number of Corp decks.
Yeah, I don't know what is in the water lately. I think some less charitable commentary on the meta would say that you need some surprise win cons that runners are just not prepared for, to try and sneak some games. But I think the core damage decks have some real strategy to them and some real power, especially in a deck like Sports where you're going to be picking up lots of little agendas. Every Nightmare Archive is essentially denying you a more steal that powers up the Corp. And we also saw the power of core in the Asa group decks.
Yeah.
Thule, sadly, not represented.
Yeah, Barthel is kind of gone for now, and maybe that's a good thing, some people say. Okay, second Mega Pre, 2 points on it. That puts
Sports
Sports
is
in the
going
danger zone.
fast. Absolutely, 5 points. You have a lot of tools here to fast advance out. But with a lot of the influence spent on moon pools, is there an audacity in this deck?
There might be one, but there's not going to be 3 or something like you might have seen a few years ago.
Okay. At this point, I think Wiki would actually be pretty happy if SebastianK was able to score a few more points, because firing a fast break might just give you everything you need to close the game.
Yeah, that's the power of the Nightmare Archives, not just setting back runner to 0, but powering up that fast break.
download and install. HQ run.
I think we've seen a lot of HQ accesses this game, and I don't think they were bad accesses, but they just haven't been lucky in finding agendas.
Not at all. I haven't kept track of how well Wiki is moving agendas from HQ into the scoring remote.
That's
I
certainly
just think
part
that,
of it. But I
but
feel like
finally we
it's.
hit
Oh,
something
sorry.
crashable.
A spin
No worries.
doctor?
Mhm.
I feel like in sports, there's only so much hand management you can do. You know, the runner kind of expects there's always going to be something there, and we just haven't seen it.
I think it's also been somewhat significant that we haven't seen a Hermes come down. That I think is another natural predator for sports. I guess it would only in this point bounce things like defensive upgrades or ice, but even still, taking away any tempo from sports, I think makes the game a lot more in your favor as a runner.
Yeah, I think an early Hermes would be really strong, but at this point, the key ice are flipped, so it's almost too late to really change the tide.
I don't think we'll see very many agenda pushes behind ice on the corp side for the rest of this game. I think it's fast advance or bust.
Yeah, I mean, we can see the hand, the tools are there. Kind of just credit and agenda waiting room.
Something I find really fascinating on the card design for Fast Break is its high cost, but then immediately usually paying you back that cost depending on how many agendas are in the area. A four cost operation can be certainly sizable, but you're only ever using the card when the runner has at least, three at the least, but maybe usually four or five in the score area for maximum value. Expect really good install, and the remote is going to bait out another run from SebastianK. But I think in order to make sure the game is still in his hands, he has to run it. We'll see what the second card besides Tranquility is here.
Yeah, I assumed that was the Giordano, but I don't see a res yet. Now, I think Giordano maybe fires after the successful run trigger, so you'd still get your Zahya bans, if I'm remembering correctly.
And your boomerang back.
Oh, yes.
I remember learning this firsthand in a game with Deep Dive Sable trying to defend R&D with Giordano, and it actually doesn't help you very much.
Yeah, some of those older FFG cards, or I guess Giordano isn't older, but there's a bit of inconsistency in when these defensive upgrades fire. Like
Interesting. No res on the Managarm for the run to tax the runner.
I think this is what you were saying, that the Corp is not planning on defending with ice for the remote. Why bother with these defensive remotes? It's just going to cost you money.
And I'm not sure how much money is the minimum that Fa needs to fast advance out, but I think it can be difficult in sports when you rely a lot on the economy of your agenda scores or steals. So I think this is a smart play and puts SebastianK in a tough spot, where he knows that trashing these upgrades is most likely mandatory for him.
I think in theory, fort credits could be enough. If you fast break and draw the right pieces, then you can moon pool. But with only two cards in the runner score area, you don't quite have the refund you need on fast break.
Not at all. And here's another access for the Giordano. And again, SebastianK on low credits and not able to trash. Not a must trash yet, but
So the question is when to wake, because if you find agendas, you're just powering up that fast break and the sports money pool.
that would explain, I think, the restraint on SebK's side, thinking instead that it might be a higher priority to keep HQ in check and probably only steal one at a time. But I think it's been quite favorable for Wiki to not have any of those HQ accesses hit the moon pool. And so we see an ice install here on HQ, I think, to just help prevent that and also deny the forward pressure from Zahya, from Wake. We also saw an install in the remote server. What do you think that card is?
Probably just keep them busy. Were there two moon pools? You know, it could be a duplicate or one of the defensive upgrades. I forget exactly what's in HQ.
Yeah, it could be one of the moon pools. We know there's still two fast breaks, I'm fairly sure. I think we lost the RLC. I'm not sure. Oh, it could be Spin Doctor. Oh, we might have to check the tapes on this one.
I imagine we find out soon enough. I mean, the runner's probably drawn half the deck. The chance that she can't get past contemplative is pretty low, I think.
I think so. Bravado run, fairly fearless with only the Shibboleth down as a breaker. Drafter.
Corp is so poor and so in need of money to score this last agenda. I think you're kind of happy to make him res anything, although maybe Drafter is the exception.
Drafter is the exception, and you see Wiki deliberating over what's going to come back when and where. Interestingly, not taking the Spin Doctor as the install, instead installing a Tranquility Grid in the remote server on top of the other card and taking RLC back to hand. I think that RLC is going to be crucial since it will let you install clicklessly the moon pool, but I think money is going to be the problem in this game.
Yeah, so I see both of those Drafter fires as being potentially money plays. You know, Tranquility is money, and then RLC, as you're saying, it could be the fast advance, or it could just be an extra credit.
And if you can fly low to the ground like Sportsmetal, I think those extra credits can go a long way. But then again, we don't know what agendas are going to be scored. You could easily see the Corp swing +5 credits on this turn.
That's the Audacity, I believe. Or, it's tough to say. But Seb showing Restraint here, only accessing one card. I think we were kind of thinking that would be a good line to not overturn on his accesses.
I feel like that click, I'm not sure if that was last click or third click. Looks like I still had a click left, respecting Ikawa. But now it looks like we're going to make the dive on R&D even deeper.
Yeah, wow, once this is all charged up, we're going to see 6 accesses, I think, on R&D next turn.
I will say that playing sports feels like gambling or, the slot machine. The runner's going to run centrals, they're going to see a lot of cards. How lucky are you going to get?
Well, the thing is, the runner's still on 0 points. I mean, even if they see 6 accesses, no way you win. And you could just put the Corp in a spot where they fast break for 5 or something.
Plus, we haven't seen the other Nightmare Archives, and I'm assuming that there are 3 in the deck. I think you're right, it's going to be a serious haymaker to actually close the game for SebK.
Yeah, I think SebK's best line is to somehow get to like 2 or 3 points and then just try to go to 7 in a huge dig turn.
Take notes for all you aspiring criminals at home.
But I do think that is the Audacity, which means even these super low credit totals are not going to prevent Wiki from scoring out if she can just find a single agenda. Biotic, yet one more way.
I think here really Wiki needs something to install with a Trank Grid, Perhaps you just use RLC like you said for the credits. I think if you draw an agenda, yeah, you could RLC for credits. If you drew an agenda on your next turn, it would be easy, I think, to just score out on low credit totals.
I think the RLC here is best saved for a clickless draw. Um, I'd be tempted to just take credits or maybe install something if you have a good option, but just money up and you'll be able to win.
Of all the cards in hand, I think the only installable is still the Moon Pool. Oh, I guess Giordano also counts. And here we go. Fares is to install.
Oh, Hendrick.
Wow. What a top deck. And I saw that, I think that's one Moon Pool discarded. Was that both Moon Pools discarded?
No way. Well, with Audacity, maybe you don't need them.
And it can be fairly expensive. I think Moon Pool is 3 to res.
Yeah.
So for clickless install with RLC, that's 4 credits plus the credits that you need for advancement, and that might just be out of reach.
Yeah, I think all you need is money to fast break and or RLC for cards. The Audacity will get you the score. I'm curious if we see Giordano on a central at some point.
I would be tempted to put it on R&D, though right now it's only a 4 credit tax, which, considering that Zahya has also been running a little low to the ground there, might be worth it. I think Drafter's doing a lot of work for now, at least until the next Boomerang comes up. But we see an HQ run instead, a Blade of Res, and the threat text is div. Wiki is using a Spin Doctor, installing it in the remote with the Tranquility to gain 2 credits, trashing something else. I would not be surprised if that was the Nightmare Archives.
I like this play because it's a free res, you get the money back, and getting the spin on the board is just more ways to draw. And I think, like we've been talking about, draw is the one thing sports needs now.
And if SebK makes the big run on R&D, Spin Doctor is also an easy way to break lock.
Yes. This is, I think, a position where Zahya not playing Diversion of Funds maybe comebacks to bite you. Compared to something like 4 and 9 that could maybe keep the Cork 1-0 after a steal, Zahya is kind of at the mercy of sports controlling their own credits.
Absolutely. Ooh, here comes the pinhole threading. So I think this will force Wiki to use the Spin Doctor. That's the Hyperloop and another spin in hand. And she's not going to remove it from the game to take any cards out of archives. This puts SebK at a really interesting choice. Spin Doctor seems like the obvious threat, but with the low credit totals like you mentioned, it could be worth going for the Tranquility. Trash.
Yeah, I do think Tranquility might be the better hit here. But then you have to spend real money, so we'll see what gets chosen.
Chesney actually can help you as a little buffer there, because when you pinhole in archives, Chesney is active 2 during the run, because lets you trash some of the cards in the remote. But it looks like instead, I'm not sure which cards Sebke chose to access, but regardless, it looks like he chose not to trash.
Yeah, I guess not spending the Chesney, maybe forgetting, or maybe considering to spend it on a different run.
We see the neutral hero for Carmen come down, and Chesney is being spent on the R&D run, which makes sense here. Twinning counters and Moats of the Wake implant is here, and there's the Nightmare Archives.
Adding it to the score area, I think at this point you take it as a core damage.
I would agree because even in ontological, which we just saw still in there, um, which just as a 3-2, I guess that helps sports with audacity, and you keep them as bricks in the hand.
Oh,
But
that's
still,
interesting.
it doesn't put you at risk of the immediate from hand onto score. So with 4 cards in the runner score area, fast break is now credit neutral. Will draw quite a bit, and Sub K remains only on 1 point.
And that's another
And
onto.
for a draw,
So the question
depending on how we
is,
see this turn, maybe that play saved Sub K another turn or two.
so can Wiki score the 4-2, the onto? Audacity alone will not do it. Now, if there was a moon pool, I think you could, but those are maybe all discarded. But did they get shuffled back? Because you could see a lot with a fast break and then maybe Vine one.
Even if you did have Moonpool, I don't know that you would necessarily have enough credits to make that happen.
With the
Well,
Trank
with
money,
the
I think
Twin
you would.
Grid.
And the Audacity to advance. Yeah. Oh, okay. Biotic Audace.
Wow. Now that is a card combination, scoring out the 4-2 from hand, and that is the game for Wikinometry. Well played, Sportsmetal in control the whole game.
It's
So some
interesting we didn't get to
seriously
see the
solid
fast
play.
break. But it looks like uh, having Biotic and Audacity means you're not even reliant on the runner taking a core.
I think that flexibility is what a good sports list will excel on, and a great sports player will take advantage of. And thank you all for joining us for round 4 of the 2025 Pittsburgh District Championships. We finally see Seb K knocked out of the first position as Wiki takes the lead for the tournament. We will see you next time, and hopefully, we will see you at the Pittsburgh Megacity, June 14th and 15th.